What's up, Ellie? First of all, I just want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule for joining me on this episode, on this podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I so appreciate it.
Yes, I'm very, very excited. Before we dive into the questions and to get to know a little bit more about you, I just want to debrief you a little bit and just let you know the reason why I started this podcast was just to bring value to the table. I did mention to you that I am kind of being a little selective on who I bring on, and I am thankful that you are wanting to take time out of your day to do this episode with me. And I know I've met you briefly on working, with Carlos and Jasmine on the previous project, in which we'll dive into. But your personality is so dope, dude. When we had moments to just like chop it up, like when we had lunch or whatever, I was like, man, like you're really cool. Like I didn't want the conversations to stop. So just honestly, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're so welcome. That's awesome to hear that. I'm glad that it helped.
No, absolutely. But for my first question,
Yeah.
when did you get started in acting?
Okay, so this is so convoluted, but I'll do the best I can. Um, the very first acting experience that I remember having, and this was also the same exact time where I absolutely fell in love and knew that I needed to be in front of people.
Mhm.
Just getting there has been different. But I was 7 years old and I was in a play. And it was just, we still had our scripts in our hands. It was a bunch of little kids. I was like the tallest kid in my class, and I had a little yellow, like, um, polka dot sort of apron on over my weird colored leggings. And like, I just remember it so vividly. And I was standing there next to all these kids. And I remember when it came time for me to start my first section of lines, I'm like looking at it, looking at my script. And then I look up at everybody and I start talking, and I made people laugh. Like they started to laugh. And I was like, oh my gosh, I did that. I made them laugh.
Yeah.
And so as a kid, I was like, this is so cool. This is awesome. And so from there, I just went into doing as many like school plays as I could, church plays, singing in church, singing for school,
Mhm.
and just being as active in that respect as I could. And there wasn't any type of an opportunity for me to be able to go and like audition for movies when I was a kid. That was never going to happen with, my family situation. So it was just something that I got involved as much as I could in my local community. And
Mhm.
then I would say, like, life happened, a lot of stuff like went on, and then I finally got to be in like a background extra in a movie that had come to our town, and I was of course a little bit older, and I remember going and just looking at all the cameras and watching what everybody was doing, and I was a herd of like 40 people that were background extras.
Mhm.
I don't know what I did, but the director and somebody else came up to me and they're like, "Hey, we would like to put you in as a featured background." And I was like, "Ah, cool." I didn't know what it was at the time. But I was like, "Yeah." They're like, "Okay, so we're gonna have you drive the car and you're the one that's gonna get into the car accident." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." And they're like, "Then we need you to do some things in the church and this crowd and whatnot." I was like, "Okay, not a problem." So I like did all the scenes and it was super exciting, and I signed paperwork at the end of the day and I got paid. And um, the bummer part is they had cut out most all of my featured extra scenes when the movie came out.
Oh,
So
come on.
yeah, I was like, oh, this is how it works. Well, you could still see me like I can see me like in the crowd and all these places and whatnot. So that was like my very first experience. But I was like, this is so cool. Then I did a couple indie films, just horror films for some people that were local in Oregon. And after that, I went into like the theater, and I went hardcore into the theater, and I was doing play after play after play. And like for a while there, I racked up like 22 different plays, and I was like exhausted of like years of doing that. And then took a major break, went to college, didn't do anything, and then slowly evolved to, I needed to get back into film. It was something that I loved to do so much.
Mhm.
So started kind of auditioning again, and here we are.
When did you know that you wanted to do this full time?
So like straight up full time, I've wanted to do it probably much, much more, I guess, much longer ago than I actually started. But I started full-time being an actor in the end of 2020. That's when like I was considering quitting my like corporate job that I had. And then in 2021, after I got the opportunity to go to Greenland to film a TV series for the Weather Channel, I was like, okay, job, peace out.
That's so cool. That's so cool. The Weather Channel, that's sick. No, for real, that's cool.
Thank you. It's pretty sweet. You know, not I before that, you know, before like straight up quitting, I put my time in for a lot of different films, a lot of short films, and then just, you know, straight into indie films. I never did like the background stuff. I've had all of like 2 background extra jobs ever. I just knew it wasn't for me. And so I was like, I need to figure out how to go from here to over there right now. And so I just worked. I worked and worked at it. And so it was, you know, a couple films here and there. Like not too many. And then I just started focusing on it. And I really truly believe in like that self-manifestation and manifesting what you want and speaking what it is that you want. And, you know, so here I am because of that.
No, I love that. I'm a huge fan of manifesting, meditating, you know, taking it a bit deeper, obviously having faith and then praying, of course, also writing your goals down. I wanted to rewind a little bit. You mentioned you originally started with theater and then you went into television and film. Did you find a challenge with that transition going from theater to television and film?
Well, I guess not exactly, because I've never, like anybody that's ever been on a set with me, they would never think that I came from a theater background. I've never been told, oh, you must have been a theater kid or you must have been this or that. Just because I've learned how to, you know, very quickly is you don't do the same things on a set as you do in the theater. It's a completely different animal. But I could jump back into the theater, like not a problem. It's easy. It's, you know, like second nature, but I didn't find any form of like that hard transition to go from one to the next. I think the hardest transition I have had was going from having a corporate day job for being, you know, a professional economic geologist for a big mine to now I work for myself and I have like 6 jobs. So that's been really difficult. But no, the theater to film was very natural for me. It came pretty easy.
No, I want to say proud of you too. You mentioned 2020 was when you really decided to do this full time.
Right.
That's a challenge within itself. You know, a lot of people do have to work the 9 to 5, and then, you know, as you know, they'll go and do some auditions, whatever it may be. And again, sometimes you may not hear anything back and you're stuck working your 9 to 5. But talk about that a little bit, because you had mentioned, you know, you were working kind of sort of like a 9 to 5 as well.
Oh, I totally was. Like I had straight out of college, I grabbed up like a super good job with what I thought was like a really decent company, moved from Nevada to Arizona to take that job, and like dove into it. And so, yes, it was very much like it was 9 to 5, but we worked 10 to 12-hour days because I was a salary person. I wasn't hourly. So they're like, oh, you get to stay. And then on top of that, you were on call, like through different shoots and different photo shoots that I was doing. I would have to tell like photographers, hey, by the way, I'm on call. So if that phone rings, I have to stop and I have to get it. And, you know, being a scientist is an extremely different mindset than it is being like a creative. And people have asked, is that hard? Is that difficult to kind of overcome? But no, I have very like equal parts of my brain. I love being a scientist and thinking about stuff, but I am so much more a creative. So like that's been a blast. But I worked for the same company for 10 years and, you know, was a, you know, solid, good geologist. It wasn't for me. That corporate environment of these boring meetings that could have just been a phone call, or, you know, why didn't we just get sent a PowerPoint around for a 2-hour meeting for somebody to overglorify something that nobody is going to work on. And it was so mind numbing and exhausting. But the best part about like all of that is I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that, because that gave me the means to put money in my savings account, to buy several different homes in order to, you know, make money off of rentals, and to have things to kind of like back that up, also on top of it, like me quitting that giant job, I also kind of had like a fallback because I do a YouTube channel as well. And that's where, you know, I have income from that now. And
Good
that's
for
all
you.
geology background.
Mhm. That's so badass. Yeah, good for you, man. You're also into rentals. When did that kind of start? That's cool. A little bit of real estate.
Yeah. So it started actually with Dan, my husband, when he was still my boyfriend, actually. We're like, hey, let's buy a rental property and Airbnb it. And I'm like, sure, why not? We're, you know, we're together, but we have no ties. Let's buy a house together. That's a smart idea. So we did. It was like a spur of the moment kind of a thing, which I know sounds weird, right? But we were like, where could we rent? Where would this do well? And
Mhm.
both of us were like, okay, somewhere near water, it always does well. And I straight up to Dan, I was sitting on the couch. I said, why not Lake Havasu? And he said, have you been there? I'm like, no. He's like, then why would you want to buy a house there? I was like, I don't know. It sounds like a good idea. We should go visit. So the next week, we made an appointment with a realtor. We bought the second house that we looked at. And after, I think, 4 months of just changing stuff up, making sure it was all good, we started renting it. And it Airbnb'd solid until we sold it.
Oh yeah,
And
that's awesome.
so in that amount of time, we'd also purchased a second house that, you know, we were also able to rent. And so two of them going at the same time, which allowed, you know, for income to come in. And then I think it was just, it was the end of 22 that we sold the first house that we bought. Mental like lapse there. I couldn't remember what date, but you know, and so that just it fueled everything. But we kind of could see that Airbnbs were dying down in the area, so we decided we needed to get out while the market was like super high. So
Mhm.
that was like the best decision I've ever made in my entire life. So it was solid. It was awesome. But I got into like all of this stuff like right before COVID hit, and then right dead in the middle of COVID, I was decided to up and quit my job. But I was like, I'd been working from home for like a year. I hated like having to like half go into work and then half come home and then just do all this stuff. Plus, you couldn't be around anybody. I was going nuts. And so like, but what was it, 2020? The middle of 2020 is when I got like my first lead in a feature film. I was with Travis Mills. He's an awesome person. And I got to go, you know, right in the middle when everybody's like, hey, it's a pandemic, don't do anything. And we're like, yeah, we're going to go film a movie. And everybody's like, what? He's like, no, it's okay. It's real small. But, you know, so that's kind of that side tangents completely, but that's kind of what I did.
No, it's all good. I mean, I welcome side tangents all day, side conversations all day. I want to rewind a little bit and also kind of put emphasis on. I feel like during the COVID period, I feel like that to approach this with humor kind of birthed a lot of artists, you know, because it locked us, obviously being on lockdown, not having anywhere to go, really gave us some time to think. And that was kind of when I started to figure out and try to cultivate what I wanted to do as well, you know. So
Yeah.
I feel like 2020 was kind of a jumpstart for many people.
Mhm.
I also did want to mention because you also said that you had a YouTube channel. What do you do on your YouTube channel? And also, I need that link so I can put that in the comments below for sure. Yeah.
So that like right in 2020, that's when I decided to start my YouTube, my social media like Instagram, Facebook, everything, and a TikTok account, of course, like everybody else, all for geology based stuff. So it's just me nerding out, being a scientist. And so it's Elley Knows Rocks. And if you type that into Google, I'm the first thing to come up, which is very cool. I've worked very hard to like make it a 4 point to get there. But my channel grows. I'm super proud of it. I think for my rock and stuff, like total followers is over 500,000. So, you know, that's
Good
pretty
for
cool. And
you.
that's collectively. That's collective. That's not just one platform.
Mhm.
And so it's super exciting though, because it allowed me to open up a lot of doors. And if I had not have started all of that stuff, I mean, maybe give or take, if I hadn't started it, I wouldn't have gotten the job to go and film the reality TV show in
Mhm.
Greenland if I hadn't have started the rock stuff. I mean, it's already there. It was just I had a couple pushes from some friends to go, you know, you should really start something because people would want to know about this. And so I was like the OG geologist on TikTok, and then a bunch of other little rugrats came in and decided to steal my ideas. That was fun, but that's kind of the nature of the beast.
Yeah, honestly, the highlighting the stealing ideas, I'm trying to find like a balance with that. Of course, forgive these people, but it's like, ah, man, you've worked so hard on something. This is your baby, and it could still be in an incubating form, like not ready to be shown.
Yeah.
But you want to tell somebody, So kind of transitioning with the quote unquote rugrats. How difficult is it to find your tribe within this industry, to find the people you can trust? And when you're starting an idea, you can bring these people and you're comfortable with sharing the idea.
Oh man. Honestly, that is so tough for me. Like I've been burned so many times, and it's like daggers. And so honestly, until I have already executed something
Mhm.
and something has already been like hardcore on its way to go, then I tell people. Unless like in the industry and in, you know, even amongst the groups that I'm in, the only people that I ever tell are my husband and my two best friends, Asia and Danny. And I mean, they're not anywhere near the industry. They think they love what I'm doing. They're my biggest fans. But those are the only people that I tell, because when you put something out there in the universe, somebody else is going to hear it. It's not just you. And so I've had so many ideas like snatched away from me that
Mhm.
it, and not like I'm trying to be like a gatekeeper of knowledge or anything like that. That's one reason why I have my YouTube and my rock channels. I want to teach people about things. But when it
Mhm.
comes to like a personal idea and something that I want to help myself grow into something to do, I usually keep that very close until it's ready to be shared, you know.
Yeah.
I I've found I would say that I'm not going to mention any names, but there are a couple people that I would trust to tell people, but not many.
Oh, if it's in a positive light, definitely name drop, and because I'm all for that. Again, this is the reason why I wanted to start this YouTube channel, is to bring value. Again, like I'm no podcaster. I'm new to this space. I'm working with friends, and at the end of the day, like I'm thankful for the people who agreed to come on, because I've had some people tell me, "Hey, man, like I'm not really trying to do it." And these are people that I've done, favors for, and it is kind of like that. I was like, oh man, I feel like I got burned in that aspect. But
Oh,
at the end of the day, like I'm gonna have to circle back, because maybe it's just not the right timing for that. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? And it is a bit of a struggle to find your tribe. I may have announced a few things prematurely, when just being excited, because at the end of the day, for me, like, who would have thought I ever would have even got into acting? Nobody in my family is doing this. You
Yeah,
know what I'm
same.
saying? This, yeah. So talk about that as well. Like, you kind of taking the last name and kind of putting on for yourself in show business, because who do you kind of go to, before you start making friends and build your tribe, like within the family? That's a bit of a struggle, right?
Yeah, it's definitely like having my husband be so supportive of me has been amazing. Like that form of support, if I didn't have that, I don't know what I would do. He's awesome. But like I'll answer this in like two parts, like family
Sure.
parts, but the tribe part too. Um I feel like I have a lot of people that are rooting for me, which is awesome, and I'm so grateful for them, and it's amazing. But then there are some groups that I work with that I'm told I'm part of the group, but then I'm like the last person to know anything that the group is doing, and I'm kind of like left out in the cold, and so that hurts so bad when you're like, oh, I thought I was like part of everything, but I'm
Mhm.
not. And so you're like, well, I don't know what I did wrong. And so it really, I internalize it a lot. I don't show people that, like, not in the moment. There's no way. Nobody's ever going to know that I feel bad, I'm hurt, I care at all. I'm cool as a cucumber. But then I'll go home
Mhm.
and I was like, oh man, what did I do? Like, did I make someone mad? Do they not trust me? Do they not like me? Am I not good enough for them? So all of those stories we tell ourselves, it's like, self-deprecation. It's just very bad. And that sucks. But then like on like the family part of it, um, I think that before I was born, I think my dad did like a couple background things, right? Down when he lived in LA, but then he didn't take it anywhere. Like there's no one in my immediate family or anything that is, part of any kind of a creative community. I mean, they wouldn't mind being in front of the camera. That's not that. They just do other things. And on top of that, I'm also the only one in my family to have graduated college. So I'm doing all of these things that like no one does, right? Because my family's very animal orientated. They love their pets. They own an exotic animal rescue facility. And so like that's been their life. And so when I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to be a scientist and then an actor to boot. And then, oh, yeah, I have a YouTube channel. My mom's like, good gosh. But one thing, like my family's always told me that I was never meant for small audiences. And I absolutely love that. That means so much to me because, yeah, it's very true. I'm a big personality half the time. But I would just say like my friends that I have in my family, they do support me so much. And so I'm so grateful for that portion of my tribe that I know that I have.
Yeah, that's amazing. Support is cool that you have it from friends and family, and it's even more important when it's close to your heart, talking about who you're in a relationship with. You know, you're talking about your husband. I know another person who is shedding a lot of light on the thankfulness that he had for his relationship with his wife was Sean Berube. You know, and I was thankful that he took the time to really talk about that because it is true. You know, this is not only, it could be seen as a lonely sport. So it's like, where do you get your support when you're in the ring? You know, and it's also just as critical and important to have that support when you're outside of the ring. You know, so thank you for shedding light on that too. And then also talking about the friends and family as well. And then shout out to moms, man. Moms know best. You know, you just got to say it how it is, you know, and I would agree that you're not meant for a small audience. You are a really big positive ball of energy, if that's the right way to put it, you know, and I've only worked with you a few times, you know, and you are a really good resource as well. You know, you are very intelligent behind the camera and also in front of the camera as well. I mean, you were giving me game, peeping it here and there. Like I was like for the case of Acacia Thatcher. And I want to do a little side note. I was telling my girl that, dude, I get to, you know, I'm doing an interview with Elley Ringo, and she goes, "Oh, is that Acacia?" I was like, "Yeah, dude." I was like, "I'm so excited." Sorry, I should have waited before you took a sip, but I was like, "This is like part of the fun." You know what I'm saying? That I get to work with these people like in front of the camera, and we get that like chemistry going, and then also get to bring them to the podcast to not be the artist, you know, to kind of talk about what happens behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Now, also being a female in the industry, do you find any challenges there?
Yeah, a couple. Yeah, you know, like going back to I guess the all the support, right? My previous relationships, because I'm in front of the camera and I'm a woman and whatnot, they were very negative. So much so that I was so suppressed that I could not go do what I wanted to do. And that's a lot of the reason why I didn't pursue film quicker is basically somebody had a leash around me, choking me. And if I tried to do anything without permission or anything that was creative at all, it was like a death sentence. And there were things that happened to me that I wish on no person ever, you know, just by the hands of another human. And it's things I didn't have control over, all because I was like, but I really want to be in this play. There's nothing wrong with it. It's fine. It was because that other people were going to look at me. And men specifically were going to look at me. Well, it's like, you know, 50-50. It's like women or men are going to look at me. What's the problem? And it's because I was a possession to that person. I couldn't go and do what I wanted to do. And I was horribly, horribly persecuted anytime I tried. And so I was like, well, I better find a different dream. I don't know what that's going to be, but, you know, just creatives don't get rid of that dream. If it's truly in you, you can do whatever you want to try to suppress it. It's not going to work.
That's so facts, dude. So spot on. Yeah.
And I was blown away that someone was like, huh, you think you're going to go do this? Just wait. I'll tighten that leash a little bit tighter. And it sucked. But that relationship, thank God, ended, right? But it was more or less me going, okay, you're gone at work. Peace out. I'm leaving and not telling you where I'm going. It was a scary situation. But
man, I'm sorry that you had to go through that, man. I feel like as men, we got to do better. And, you know, I stand for, I'm zero tolerance with domestic violence to any degree. You know, I've done papers in high school and in college about that. And I just get so infuriated because as men, like, we just got to do better. Yeah.
And it sucks. And then that's, you know, people think it's okay, which is even worse. And so on top of that, being a woman in industry, people like I get twofold. Either, oh, you're pretty, you must be stupid. Or you're pretty, I'm a dude, I can have sex with you, or you're not going to do anything else. And I'm like, no.
Right.
Like, I probably own more guns than you do, and I know how to use them. Otherwise, that area in between your legs hurts really bad no matter what you hit it with. And so, to me, it's you can't treat people like just an object, like a piece of meat, because you're a dude and you think that if you're in the industry, then it gives you this right to do these things. Well, I mean, I've been the most respected by some guys, and I've been so disrespected by some guys in the industry. But what really I think makes a big man is, you know, if let's say they like you, woman, unless a dude likes a dude, whatever you want to do. But and I've had this happen to me before. They've messaged me going, "Hey, I really like you. I know that we've worked together, and I know that you're in a relationship, kinda. You have a boyfriend, but do you think that we could do something together?" And I was like, as much as I appreciate that, as much as I like working with you, I have a relationship, and I'm in a relationship with somebody that I absolutely love. But, like, thank you for telling me and not being a jerk about it. And I hope we can still work together. And I have, worked with those people. I mean, I think they're like all gone now out of my life, but that's at least respectful enough to say, "Hey, I like you, is it okay?" And then we can still work together and have a professional relationship, even though there was like that feelings gray area.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's a really hard one, because I feel like if I'm like the most, like, or the slightest bit like having fun, or, just I'm a happy person most of the time. So people will confuse that with me flirting with them. And I'm thinking, dude, if I was flirting with you, you would know this is just like me. And so people will start to, or dudes mainly, will start to come on to me just because I was happy about something that they asked me. And I was like, I don't know how to turn this off. I just wear a paper bag, not say a word.
Yeah. Well, you're really convincing and you're acting, and it's good. You know what I'm saying? But that's not to say, good on that other side when people are kind of over, inviting themselves, if you will. Like, you got to respect the fact that, number one, you're in a relationship.
Yes.
And number two, that this is acting. None of this is real. It just so happens that Elley is just good at the conviction, the eye contact, whatever it may be, But yeah, just don't get that confused. I've had that happen to a small degree myself, and it's just like, no, man, I'm not in it for all that,
No.
So yeah.
So like on set, when you're working with somebody, if you're in a situation where you have to talk to them and you have to create that eye contact, there has to be some form of chemistry there, whether you're creating it on your own, which is usually what I'm doing, or, it's natural. But once the scene ends, that's it. Like, and people really need to respect that boundary. And I feel like for both people, that can be a gray area. And it's like, you're in a professional situation. Like, remember that if you kiss somebody on scene, doesn't mean you're going home with them. I mean, maybe it will for somebody, but it it just simply means that this is what the scene required. So make it believable so the audience believes it and feels it. That's the entire point. Because if you watch a good film that has like some kind of intimate scene, if the actors are good, you believe it. And you want to have something with some other person because of, that scene. You feel those emotions. That's the whole point. It doesn't mean any more than that. And I think that people get confused by that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. This is like clocking in like any other job. You go from 9 to 5 to work at 9 to 9 in the film industry, but yeah, people need to understand that you need to remain professional, and because once you push past somebody's boundaries, dude, it's such a turnoff, and not in a sexual way, but it's like they're there being vulnerable themselves. You understand as an artist that you do have to be open and vulnerable. Don't ruin it for people. Especially for females. Like, if you're a male on set, like, and that's the type of energy I try to bring. Some sets are smaller than others, but when it's like a bigger set, like, I just try to be that light in a way. You know what I'm saying? Because things can go south fairly quickly. It just takes for one thing to go wrong, and it's like, man, I'm not even trying to get into any of that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, but then one thing that I did want to ask you as well. Were you born in Arizona? That's usually like the first question that I ask, and I completely skipped that. Where were you born?
No, so I guess long short story. I was born in Missouri, actually,
Cool.
But I consider myself to be from Oregon. That's where my folks still are, even though they're moving. And then I moved from Oregon to California to Nevada to Arizona.
Okay, sick.
So yeah, I've had like this roundabout sort of all over the place.
That's dope. I never would have guessed that you're a scientist, that you're from Missouri. Like, you do a lot of cool shit, Elley. Like, just wanted to throw that out there. Yeah, it's very cool. So now let's dive into some acting questions. And I really wanted to ask you this, specifically you. Do you find it hard to separate yourself from your characters because you're good at the conviction, you're good at the eye contact, and so yes.
So I love that you asked this question, actually. Like, I love diving into a character. I love finding the character. Most of the time I can find them pretty quickly just from, reading. And so like when I come out of a scene, sometimes it takes me a couple minutes just to disassociate myself with what just happened, especially if it's really emotional, but not too long. Like I'm not a method actor by any means. Like I can be laughing like 1 minute and then, be in a hardcore scene or be pissed off the next. And, maybe that, makes me a little bit of a like psycho, but I think Meryl Streep said that, we're all a little bit sociopathic if you're an actor.
Yeah, it's true to a certain extent. Yeah.
And you can do that because you put yourself into so many different characters. And I love doing that. But I think when I'm preparing for a character, I try to think a lot about what is that person going to do? Why are they going to do it? What is their motivation for doing these things? But I don't take any of that into my real life. I don't project that on anything else except for when I'm in the moment and studying that. Otherwise, it's just, I might play it through in my head. Like I can usually visualize what I'm going to do and like block it out in my head before I actually get on set. And then I just try to let it go kind of freely from there. But I don't really, I think I answered it.
Absolutely. I want to shed some light. Let's rewind a little bit. You mentioned method acting. I've had some people, I've had this conversation because I like inputting a little bit of method in my training. What's your opinion on method acting? Do you think it's an excuse for people?
Yeah, actually, I do. I think it's kind of twofold. I think that one, it gives people the arrogance to either have a bad attitude, to have a, slut attitude, to have, this bad guy, tough guy attitude all the time. And I think to myself, like, really? Like, are you like pissed off at the world and this is just your opportunity to like do this?
Right.
Or do you really need to do that? Is that absolutely necessary for you? I have worked with method actors where, like, so much so, if they don't have the person that they're acting to, like, right in front of them, they can't go on. They can't physically do the scene. Or me, I don't need anybody on in front of me or whatever. I can pretend that you're there.
Right.
And I don't know. I can't speak for other people and what they need or what they have to do. But I mean, it's everybody's game, whatever makes you get the role done. But if you're going to project that on your fellow actors walking around, and it sucks. I mean, I was in a play at one point where, and this is the most extreme amount of like method acting that someone had ever projected on me. He had told me that because he was supposed to be so angry with me in this scene that he couldn't be nice to me any other time. And I'm like, okay, really? And so I would even try to say hi, how he was doing and whatnot, just, and he was just like, holy crap. And he kind of acted that way to the other females, but to the men, he was fine. And I'm like, I don't get it. Like deep down inside, there's something for me. I just don't connect with that on such a deep level that I don't understand. Sorry, my cat joining us.
What's up, cat? Fur babies. Love fur babies. My sister's got like 4 or 5 cats and like, I think, one dog. I don't know why I was going to say 2, 3 dogs. She's only got 1 dog. If you're going to go method acting, let's try not be an asshole at the same time. When the director says action, do what you got to do, rehearse with your partner, make sure you're careful, especially if there's anything to where you have to put hands on your partner, if it's fighting choreography, whatever it may be, please rehearse, but dive as deep as you need to go. Some people need to kind of do that route, but don't be an asshole about it. You know what I'm saying? You mentioned that guy on set. he was just being aggressive towards you and also other females. And then when he's around with the homies and the other guys, he was perfectly fine.
Yep, everything was great. I'm like,
there's a little bit more than just method there. I think that this person has that type of characteristic. I don't know who this is, but just going off of what you're saying, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's how I felt too, for sure.
Not cool, man. Now let's talk with acting classes. You know, kind of prepping and taking training. Do you believe that acting classes are important?
Okay, so don't get mad at me.
Not at all.
No one get mad at me for this.
This is just your opinion. That's it.
I've never taken an acting class in my life.
Really? Okay.
Yes, and I actually admitted this the other day to Wendy Elaine Wright, that does the Hollywood Winner Circle, and she couldn't believe me. Like she did believe me, but she's like, oh my gosh, really? And it warmed my heart so much so for the kind things that she said. I don't think I've ever been so warmly complimented by somebody I've never met in my life, which was awesome. And I told her, yeah, I rehearse with myself. I don't have any acting coaches, never have. Like the only sorts of training that I've had is like been like on set training. Like I know how to do lighting or mess with the camera or, you know, whatnot. I've done a lot of, like, I wouldn't call them classes, but I kind of considered them classes as, you know, not breaking character in dinner theater. I don't know that sounds weird, but it's a severe thing. You break character in dinner theater, you are screwed. And so you can't do that. And so, you know, I considered doing the dinner theater and not breaking character. I was like, I asked Amanda, who was there doing it, I said, can I put this on my resume that, like, you know, we did this as like a class? She's all, sure, I don't care. So it was just one of those things that, you know, that's what I did. But no, I think that there are a lot of people out there, like getting back to your question, there's a lot of people out there that definitely need acting classes. And I've seen acting classes definitely change people's whole acting style into an actual good actor. Whereas in the beginning steps, you're like, oh, I hope you never get in front of the camera again. But then they came out of a couple acting classes and it's like, oh my gosh, you've learned so much. And I believe that some people are totally trainable. I believe that some people are not trainable at all. And you can go to as many acting classes as you want. If there's something, that spark isn't there, I don't think that you're ever going to find it. But if it's something you want to do, by all means, keep going and keep trying. And I'm always, you know, for people following their dreams, doing what they want to do, even if they're not good at it. And you don't do what makes you happy, which is the whole point.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere for sure. Like, don't let the first few projects determine, oh man, if this is for me or not for me. My first few projects tanked. Like, you know, they didn't even come out. Yeah, and it's like the whole David Letterman thing. Was it me? Is it me? You know, so that's the thing. But you just kind of got to learn from that. You know, you're gonna fail forward. That's just what it is. And I would say acting classes are, you know, important to a certain extent. Of course, you need the training. You need to see how it's being done, how somebody else is doing it. With no experience, at least go out there and see how it's done so you can grab something. And that's a good place for you to start. But on the other side of things, kudos to you because you nailed it right on the head. There's no better training than actually going live, than actually, you know, doing the audition, getting cast, getting booked, and then showing up on set and then kind of taking it from there. Yeah. There was something I wanted to ask you, but I lost my train of thought. What were you going to say?
I was talking to you about this, and it's not something that I like admit to a lot of people or talk about to a lot of people. And I think it was when we were having lunch actually, over by that church. And I'd asked you because for the longest time, this was my biggest fear, is the fear of actually succeeding. It's like, I know I'm going to fail, but am I really afraid of like holding on to my dream, of reaching it, of you know, shooting forward and actually having it? And now that I've had it, what am I supposed to do with this? Am I even good at it? Was it just a fluke? You know, can I keep going and reproducing what it was that made me get this far? Oh my gosh, that freaked me out so bad. It was like, what am I scared of? Am I scared of actually doing a good job? Or am I scared of never being able to do that? And I think that, you know, people that have the fear of failure, I don't think that they've ever really failed before, because failure you shouldn't be scared of it. Failure is not a fear. It's just maybe if you're afraid to make a fool of yourself, which definitely I'm not. But if you're afraid that somebody won't like you or they're going to judge you and that's your fear of failure, like the creative industry is definitely not the place like to be, right? Because you have to be so vulnerable and you have to put yourself out there. But in order to do that, like either people are going to like what you have or they're going to hate it. And what if they like it so much that it shoots you into the next realm? It's like, I don't know. It's such a hard thing to like talk about, but
I think it's more so the sustainability, not being afraid of the success. Like you kind of understand, like you just said it, people are either going to like what you come out with or you don't. And then at the end of the day, art is just subjective. You know, the person to my left would be like, oh, that was amazing. And then my person to my right could have so many questions about it, you know, and that's just how it goes. But I think it is more of the sustaining. Like once you have it, of course, because you've cared, you spent so much time. Yeah. Where do we go from here also? You know? But what are you looking? Let's dive into that. Let's take it back to our lunch conversation. Within the film industry, what are you necessarily looking for to obtain?
I'm going to be an A-lister. That will be me. I will be one of those people that you see at the Oscars, and I
can see that
for years. I try to see. I never want to be that person that somebody thinks is an ass on set. Like, if I can help, I will help. If I can do something, I'll do something. Unless I need to study my lines and be in my own little world for a minute to get that done, I am going to help you, or help whoever needs that. And I want that. I want to be remembered as somebody who's helpful and kind and will do things with somebody else that maybe somebody else won't do to help them succeed. And I've always tried to see myself as being that star that's rising. And it's very difficult sometimes. That is the scariest thought, it feels like, but that's what I want. That's deep down inside. And years ago, I used to be so scared of telling anybody that because I felt like, oh, when I grow up, guess what I'm going to be? But then I realized, why am I laughing at myself? Like, this is my dream. And if I'm too ashamed or scared to tell people my dreams, then why am I going after them?
Bro, we could just end the episode right there. That was a banger, dude. Oh man, that was that gave me goosebumps. Because yeah, keep going.
No, this is the truth, right?
Yeah, like, I feel so. Yeah, 100%.
So that's what I strive to do, and I want other people to be empowered enough to say what they want and go after what they want, because no one's going to do it for you. Right. No one's going to hand it to you and say, "Oh, here you go. Guess what?" So you have to put in the work. You have to show up. You have to put in the time. You know, if you say you're going to be somewhere, be somewhere. And if other people flake out on you, that sucks for them, and that's going to come and bite them in the butt, because you know, karma's real. It's going to come back around, and I want to be on, you know, the good end of that. I want to be able to help people as well and see that in themselves.
Absolutely, be a positive influence. And that's another thing, like as you're on the rise, you know, and I want to rewind and say, I absolutely see you as an A-lister, dude. So don't you ever give up, in which I know you're not, but I just want to add more confidence to that because it's just so badass. Like real recognize real. And that's all I really need to say about that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I also wanted to ask you, what was auditioning your first year like?
Oh. Okay, so I hate auditioning. I think like everyone else.
Same, yeah, same.
Oh my God. Scratch that. I like auditioning. I don't like self-tapes. I would rather have the nerves of a straight out cold read where they're like, okay, here you go. I can read over it just once to make sure that I know where my name is so that I don't skip over my name, because I've done that in a cold read. Oh my gosh. I went in, I skipped over. I was reading someone else's lines for half of the script. I went, wow, they must think I'm just so special right now that I'm that big of an idiot to mess that up. But I did it. I smiled and I left. And then I was like, oh, I was the other character. Oops. Yeah, I didn't get called back.
Oh, man.
But I don't like self-tapes. It sucks. I would so much rather meet someone in person. And I think that that's where a lot of my roles have come from. Like directors have seen me on another set and said, hey, I would like you to just read through this, maybe audition for it. They might want you as a self-tape, but they already saw me in person. They already saw me working. And then they wanted me to go work on their film. And I would say that's where I've gotten my biggest roles and, you know, some of the coolest roles. But, you know, not to say that the very first like leading role that I got in a feature film, oh, I definitely auditioned for. And the director, Travis, so nice. He's like, yeah, there's gonna need to be a lot more subtext in that in like the film. And so for me, like when I get into self-tape, I'm like, okay, it's gonna be too long. The self-tape is already too long. Oh my gosh, am I gonna have the internet in order to upload this? What if the internet goes out? What if it's too long? What? And so that is the story.
All valid, all valid, all valid. I kept up with that, all valid.
Yeah, right. And so you're like, oh. And I know that people have had that because, oh man, when I lived in Baghdad, the internet was crappy. And let me correct everybody who's thinking this: Baghdad, Arizona, not Iraq. It's a mining town. If you were lucky, it would take I don't know, 30 minutes for me to upload a 2-minute self-tape.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah. So every second I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, is it gonna work? Am I gonna have to start over? What's gonna happen? Ugh. So it sucked. And so I was always conscious of that, especially starting. So I was like, okay, make this as quick as possible. Just read through your lines. And so I knew that I was doing horrible sometimes, but I tried to do the best I could, or to find like really shortened things. And so that was like the first like steps of auditioning. I have since gotten over that. You know, it's like you have to slow down. You have to put in all of the subtext. You have to do the little tedious things that might seem almost meaningless, but it's so important because it was written in the script for a reason. The writer is wanting you to do something or see something or feel something, so do it. And I think that it took me a second, you know, 2-3 auditions where I was like, I know I'm doing this wrong, and so I need to get better at it. So that was kind of the learning curve for, you know, that auditioning process.
Would you say you're better under pressure? I feel like I already know the answer to this, but would you say that you're better under pressure?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You say you like cold reads. I'm not gonna lie, man. I've only done a small handful, and every time I'm reading this thing, and you kind of have a little bit of confidence, but not gonna lie, dude, my heart's ready to jump out of my chest, dude.
Oh,
every
dude,
single time.
I am lucky the paper isn't like wiggling, but it's a I've learned to control my blood pressure, and so you just do that through breathing and through learning how to breathe. I think yoga really has helped with that. But no, I'm still sitting there, and I've learned to not do the shake so much as like I don't get like nervous as my hands are shaking. But it's if someone had their hand on my heart, if I was wearing a microphone, you wouldn't be able to hear my voice. My heart's pounding so hard.
Yeah,
and I believe that I still get nervous doing those things because I want to do the best I can. And I'm so hard on myself that I'm like, okay, do a good job, you know, and it's a need for perfection. I think that I get into somewhere and I'm still nervous. Like I get, not that I'm not nervous on podcasts. I love doing podcasts, but when I go into a Zoom, like meeting or something like that with a bunch of actors or whatever for some particular, you know, person, oh my gosh, just even entering the Zoom call, I'm like, okay, don't freeze, just be normal. And then I'll even find myself like getting a dry mouth. I'm like, I'm not even in person. What is your problem right now? Just be normal. Yeah. And I feel that it's such ingrained in me that I keep trying to get over it, but it doesn't go away.
Well, thank you for saying that, because I go through that as well. And then, you know, I feel like many other people also go through that, you know, whether it is a cold read. But on the other side, I'm also thankful for the self-tapes, because here we are in the age of technology to where we can do it 1,000 times. I mean, not that we're going to do it 1,000 times, but we can do it more than once, you know, kind of review it, edit it a little bit, and then we send the one that we're confident with, you know. So I'm kind of thankful that we do live in that realm to where we could self-tape. Now, you also mentioned writers and scripts and kind of staying true to the text, because the writers wrote it for a specific reason. Maybe they want to go for a specific, they want to feel something. When would it be the right moment to improvise?
When you're on set and you ask, like I believe that if you're doing an audition, to miss like a word or two, or swap the words as to, you know, something you would say. Yeah, one, you're learning it really quickly. You're off book. You're trying to, you know, remember all those things, which that's never been a problem for me. I'm quick with that. But I have, you know, swapped out words, and in my head, I'm like, oh, that's not exactly how the text went, but I don't know that they're going to care. Hopefully not. And, you know, that's okay to do, completely veering off that idea. But when you're on set, if you go to the director or the writer or whoever's there behind the camera and you're like, hey, could I do it like this? Would the character say this maybe instead of this? And that's, I think, the only appropriate time in order to switch that up, unless the director flat tells you, do what you want with it. Like, you don't really have to stick closely to the words. Get the right emotion across, you know, get the scene there, the idea of the scene, so we know what we're doing next. Then, you know, you're kind of in an improv sort of a situation, and you can, you know, have a ball with what you think the character would do. Otherwise, it's a definite ask thing. Don't just take it upon yourself to change something, because it, you know, if it's written away, they probably want it unless they tell you otherwise, or you ask about your character, like, straight up. And that's also a good, like, if you're talking with the director or the writer before the movie happens. And I've had this conversation many times, and writing my notes with them going, and they're like, don't stick so much to the words. It's not that big of a deal, but you need to get this character across this way. And then they talk to you about the character, and you kind of do these little development things, and you can play those scenes out in your head. You know, that's also an appropriate time to ask. And I love directors that are like super cool like that. And they're like, you know, try to make sure we hit these points, but, you know, use your intuition, use your talent. That's why you're here, in order to, you know, like, project the character however you see fit.
Absolutely. I love that you say ask, for sure. You know, this person is hiring you. You're not above anybody. Let's ask and get some permission. And then on the other note, you also mentioned you have those directors who are like, yeah, just not do your thing, but this is where I want you to kind of stay. Don't go left, don't go right, but it's yours. Have fun. Like, I love that friendly freedom that they give us a chance to explore.
I do too.
You know what I'm saying? That's very cool, man. Let me see here. Let's dive into some more. Okay, this is actually another thing I wanted to ask you, because I see you in a lot of horror projects in the genre. So what is one genre that you haven't done that you're wanting to do?
Fantasy.
Okay.
I really want to do fantasy and action so badly. Like, action films are some of my favorite. I also haven't done like a romantic comedy, which I think would be fun. But I've done drama, comedy, or no, I guess kind of two comedies. But mostly, yeah, horror. Which, okay, I am a pseudo horror fan. No one get mad. But
what does that mean?
Okay,
Pseudo,
so I'm not like a hardcore horror fan. Woohoo, yeah. Like, you know,
okay.
cult status. I love this. Why I'm in them. It's like horror films. I believe they're the cheapest, easiest film to make for the independent film community. And, you know, you can get a lot of bang for your buck, so to speak. But like, for me, like, I hate dying in horror films. Ugh, sucks. I don't like it. I don't like the blood. I don't like the stickiness. It freaks me out. And I just don't like the general context of like having to like die on screen. I don't know why. Just not a fan. But also, like, I'm scared of horror films. I can't watch them alone.
Making them is one thing. Watching them is completely different. The lights are on when we make them. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of light on set, but when we watch them, the color grading is so good.
It freaks you out, right? Okay, so in the story that stems from this is I was 16, and I was, what was it? I think it's the Blair Witch Project, like, popped on TV. I was like, oh, I've never seen this before. I'm gonna watch this. And so I did, and I watched it in the middle of the day. Okay, I couldn't walk down a flight of stairs for months, probably a good year, without going, oh my gosh, is something down there? Am I going to see it? Is something going to be there? I'm going to freak out right now. In the middle of the day, outdoors, indoors, whatever, like, walking downstairs was horrible for me. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I watched that all alone. So from there on out, I vowed that I wouldn't watch horror films unless someone was with me.
There are some horror films that's exactly like that. I like scary movies, and I understand that horror is one of those genres to where it's like I don't know if it's like the biggest, but I understand that it's got its own culture within itself. It's almost like anime. You know,
Yeah.
anime has grown to be quite the culture within itself.
Yeah.
And I feel like rightfully so, growing up as a kid, like Dragon Ball Z, man, all the way.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, I just finished up watching, Dragon Ball Z Kai and Super or whatever. Have you watched Dragon Ball Z?
Yeah.
You have? Okay, cool. So
Yeah.
reliving childhood.
Mhm.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So it's diving into the horror realm, and I've only done a few horror projects. But now I want to talk a little bit about the case of Acacia Thatcher.
Sure.
So I know that the trailer's launching tomorrow at 10 a.m., May 6th at 10 a.m. And I think we have a little bit more to shoot, if what Carlos was saying. But talk about that, because your character is very, I don't want to give away too much. I don't want to give no spoilers. So should we talk about the projects? I just wanted to dive into your character just a little bit.
Yeah, totally.
Talk about the because it does deal with a little bit of mental illness, and I want to shed light on that. The depression, the anxiety. So
yeah. So having, I would say, the like different mental health issues that have run through my family, like on my grandparents' side and whatnot, and then me going through different spurts of like being very depressed and going into full-on panic attacks, like at work. And I'll get into the character, I promise, but like background, I was so bullied by my boss at my previous job that I would go into my office and not be able to breathe and just feel like the walls were closing in on me and somebody was like nailing the box shut and I couldn't get out. And I went into the doctor to like tell them about this. And as I was talking about it to the doctor, I went into a full-blown panic attack. Like I was trying to crawl up the corner of the wall, sort of like backwards, just to get away from everybody. It was bad. And it was so scary to have that feeling, right? And for people to not understand what that's like, or if you've never had something like that, it's very difficult to explain that you don't have control over that. There are coping mechanisms that you learn. And, I wasn't like a medication sort of person. Don't like it. Don't like what it makes me feel. So it takes you longer to get over it because of that. But it's a touchy thing. And I would say that creatives in general kind of go through this up and down of like you're on set, you're hard and heavy and everything's high and it's great and it's so much fun and then you come off of it and you're like, well, now what do I do? Now I'm worthless. Now no one wants to work with me. What am I doing? Like, why this sucks? I guess I'll just watch TV. No, I'm bored. Oh, it's late in the morning. You know what? I don't need to get up and exercise. I'll just continue to sleep. And then we don't do anything and we're not productive. And I've gone through stages of that and it's horrible. And it's draining and it's exhausting. And so like, going into a character where, oh, you're going to be a mental health patient. I'm like, uh-oh. I was like, okay, cool. Is she like, like what type of mental patient is she? And so she has DID, which I forgot what the name of it is.
Hold on. It is, wait, come on. Let's do Carlos proud. Dissociative. No.
Identity disorder.
The dissociative identity disorder?
Yes.
So what is that necessarily? And
so it's basically she makes up these characters that she believes is real. And they're all they might stem from somebody that she sees in person, but they're made up in her head and she believes them to be part of her life. And so that's what my character is going through, is there's all these multiple characters and to her they're all very real. And she goes through ups and downs of hurting people, having odd relationships with everybody that she comes in contact with. And it's I don't really have like a synopsis that is other than she has a lot of mental health issues and she doesn't necessarily want to work through them. And when she comes back to realizing that she has these mental health issues when she's in the hospital, she's done. She doesn't want to get the help that she needs. She doesn't want to go through any more procedures. She's had it. And every time it's brought up, it stings her. She believes what she believes so strongly that she doesn't want it to go away. And then that's like the, you know, scene you and I had together. It's a lot of the scenes that I have to be in, I have to be so extremely vulnerable.
Man.
And
Yes. Yeah.
you know, you were there, I think, for like
Mhm.
one of the worst so far.
Mhm.
You know,
The heaviest, yeah, I would say.
yeah, it was that white room scene was intense. And
Mhm.
going into, I would say, like that level of emotionality that you witnessed, and I don't want to, like, you know, say too much because I don't know what I can say, but for me to do that, I have to go into kind of a very sad, dark place. And so I still don't really consider that to be like method, but
Mhm.
it maybe, I don't know. But I know I have to go into that deep place, and it's a very, very sad spot that I have to
Mhm.
be in for a few minutes, and, you know, and then go through the scene. And
Mhm.
so I always just hope that I can kind of get it right the first time, you know, so that I don't have to do it again, because it's exhausting. It's so extremely draining to be there.
Mhm.
And playing a character like this is just absolutely awesome, but it's so exhausting at the same time.
Yeah, that's all I really wanted to dive into is your relationship with the character. I know we definitely don't want to spoil nothing. You know what I'm saying? We don't want to dive into it too deep.
Uh-huh.
Because I did, yeah, definitely. I was there, you know, during one of the heaviest days of shooting in the white rooms, that scene. And that's
Mhm.
all I'm gonna say about that. But the emotion that you brought was so deep. And it's felt, that's the thing, like sure you can view it, but it's like you just had to have been there to feel it, you know? So I also wanted to ask you what inspires Elley the most?
Ooh. Uh, that's hard. Oh, that is very difficult. I mean, without sounding like an ass, I guess the person that I want to be in the future is a big inspiration. I'm not there yet, right? And I know that many people have said this before me. I can't like think of their names, but um there is a level that I want to get to that is way beyond where I'm at. And I think that's a big drive for me as well as an inspiration. You know, I also like I look up to, I would say, a lot of different actors. I really love Jessica Chastain's career. She's awesome. And the her emotional levels for her characters have been just so awesome to see that I want that same level. I want to be in that realm. And um I would say other things that like just inspire me in general are just the way that I view the world. Um, we only get one life,
Mm,
and if you're not out there doing everything that you can to live to your fullest, like every single day, you're doing something wrong. And I love experiencing life, whether it hurts or, you know, whether it feels good or whether you break something or, you know, whether something happens. It's and this is all stemming from actual things that have happened to me. I wouldn't change, you know, any of that, or you know, side tangents of, you know, my life that have gone in different directions. Yeah, there's some things that I wish I could have told myself, hey, avoid that person, they're gonna suck and you're really gonna regret it. Um, but all those aspects have been, I kind of look back on and I'm like, okay, you this is inspiring because you got over this because of these things. And I guess that's kind of where I find it, because I've realized that if you really put a lot of emphasis on one person or one specific thing, eventually that person or that thing could let you down. And if that's where you're finding your inspiration and that's what drives you and then it crushes you, where do you go from there?
mm,
And I've
yeah.
done that and that's happened. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. And I don't want to let myself down. And so I want to push as hard as I can all the time to be like as good as I can, as, you know, always reaching for that next level, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. You had mentioned that you don't want to sound like an ass, but not at all. I mean, you just have goals. I think Matthew McConaughey was the person who goes, I'm always chasing that, you know, that man I see
Yes,
10,
thank
15 years from now. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, as an artist, you kind of need the feedback. You want to criticize yourself just a little bit healthy. Sometimes it could go unhealthy, but You're just wanting to reach new levels. That's all it is. It's just like exercising. You're not necessarily going to stay with the same weight and expect yourself to see the results. Or let's say you're smashing it in the gym, you have a really good workout routine. You kind of got to get your diet in order too, with your nutrition. You know what I'm saying? So you kind of got to get out there and see what works for you. But at the end of the day, you won't know if you don't try. So I think that's great, honestly.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I also want to end it on anything that you're currently working on that you're excited about, some release dates. I know we have The Case of Acacia Thatcher, the trailer dropping tomorrow, May 6th at 10 a.m. But is there anything else that you're working on that you just wrapped up?
Nothing that I've wrapped up. Two or three movies that I was in last year. And I've forgotten. I think it's 3 films. They're all in post-production. I think that they're finished. They're just waiting to like announce releases because they're being sold, so that they can't do that. The film that I was in, Camp Pleasant Lake, will be out on Stars June 1st. So that was pretty cool. That is exciting. Let's see what else. This week alone, I have read 4 different scripts. From 4 different people. I have one role, which is super exciting.
Congratulations.
I just sent in an audition for another one. And then, hopefully the end of this week, I will hear back from the other 2. And so, yay, like that. I'm excited about that. That was pretty sweet. Otherwise, no, I'm just continuing to do what I do. Like every week I put out content for my geology and rock stuff. And then I'm also managing like all of the Elley Ringo stuff to, balance stuff out. I write for 2 different like scientific magazines. So that becomes exhausting. And then on top of all of that, I'm always writing down my ideas for, either different films or different things. Anytime like inspiration hits, I have 4 different scripts that I'm working on for feature films. And I actually started writing a book. And so
sick.
I'm always like busy with different stuff. And then I'll be on a panel at the Phoenix Fan Fusion on May 25th on Saturday.
What is that? What's the Fan Fusion?
Phoenix Fan Fusion is the Phoenix Comic-Con, basically.
Oh, dang. Okay, sick.
And so, yeah, that's pretty fun. I'll be there with Summer and Bear, and we'll just be talking about like the industry and social media and that kind of a thing. And that's that's always fun. This will be the 3rd time I've been on the panel, so it's it's awesome. I'll go and I'll dress up because I absolutely love cosplay. It's one of my favorite things. So I'm working on my outfit.
That's so sick. Yeah, that's very fun. That's cool. And good for you, man. Being that it's your 3rd time there, just like be yourself, be your light, dude. Like that's I feel like what we need more in the industry. More leaders to just lead in a positive way, and not gatekeep and lift each other up. I think that's such a beautiful and important thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Elley, I just want to say thank you so much for taking time and having this episode with me. And dude, anything you need, I'm rocking with you. I support you for sure. Please hit me up. Yes, absolutely. But thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much again for having me on. I absolutely loved it. Hopefully I didn't do too many side tangents.
Not at all. You did great. No, you did awesome. Thank you.
All right. Mwah.